have a president-elect, and still, the crazy thing is that there are states to come in yet. So we are still waiting on that. And of course, an afternoon filled with information. In the next hour, we will hear from the vice president herself as we learn today that she has called now President-elect Donald Trump conceding the election. Again, we are expected to hear from Kamala Harris for the first time since this race was called at 4 p.m. She will speak from Howard University, where she was expected to speak last night. That did not happen. Again, she would address her supporters from Howard. She never made it to her alma mater as those results rolled in. And it was just before 2 in the morning when we learned that Donald Trump will become the 47th president of the United States, making history, becoming only the second person ever to win 2 non-consecutive terms as presidents. Joining us now,
we are alive to see it.
Bob McEwen and Democratic strategist Nicole Brenner-Schmitz. Good to have you both with us tonight. Bob, let's start with you. What's your party saying? What's the momentum and what's the feeling today?
Well, feeling very, very good. A little bit better than anybody even hoped for, I think. And so the change in the Senate's good, and the comfort of having it all behind us, I think everybody rejoices.
Say that again. Everybody, the whole news was like, all right, let's get back to regular work.
Exactly.
Almost.
Almost.
So got to find out who's controlling the House.
True.
That is one business that's left, and we actually have a couple races here in Maryland and Virginia that are hanging. In the balance of power, Maryland 6 and Virginia 7 still have not been called. The Senate, to Bob's point, flipped here with 2 seats for the Republicans. Nicole, what's the party saying tonight? We know that Kamala Harris called to concede, obviously a very different scenario from 2020, and yet still it seems as though the Democrats are saying we must continue to protect America. What does that mean?
I mean, look, they're still talking about her priorities and what she ran on. Obviously, this is not the outcome that they were looking for today. Focused very much on these House seats. We've got some that are going to go to automatic recounts, Ohio 9 with Congressman Marcy Kaptur. We're going to be looking at ballot curing in Nevada 3. As you said, around here, counting closely, Maryland 6, Virginia 7. So it's going to be a tight hold. And we still have some Senate seats that aren't called. So, I mean, those are still important. Yes, the Republicans are going to take control, but by how much? And then I think we're going to see a lot of reflection and dissecting of who were the people we already know. Hispanic men really broke big for Republicans in a way that we've seen a trickling of, but was an open, gate this time. Why is that? What was the communication happening? And I think there's going to be some Monday morning quarterbacking. Oh, was it the right pick? Was it too short of a time? But we really need to look at the electorate and the messaging and reflect as Democrats and go forward.
Let me ask you guys, we watched this. We couldn't wait for this to happen and be over. Then this morning, I started hearing everybody talking about midterms and 2020. I mean, as early as like 10 o'clock this morning, I heard the word midterms come through my phone. Somebody I was talking to, are you guys there now, or are you taking some time to let this settle in before you start looking at the midterm elections and looking at 2028?
Well, I've heard people always talk about having term limits. And as a member of Congress, every January, you're either sworn in or you file for re-election, which I think is enough turnover for anybody to try to run anything. So the idea that we're going to talk about elections already, I'd like to, let's at least get the new guy in before we...
some time here to wait. Let's talk back at the points that you were making. We have talked to pollsters ourselves. Polls from now on, I mean, 2016 they said was an anomaly. Here we are in 2024 and did not bode as the pollsters had predicted. According to polls, this was going to be razor thin, 50-50. Every time they ran the models, it was 50-50, and dozens, if not hundreds of these models predicting that. Let's talk about women, because your party had maintained that women would come through for Kamala Harris, that reproductive rights was the one thing that was going to get her in the White House. That did not happen. How wrong was your party?
I mean, look, we're going to be looking at it for a long time. Women of color did. We did not see what we thought was going to happen with white women. We saw more what we saw in 2016. I think a lot of these women live in states where it's enshrined. We saw a lot of abortion ballot initiatives across the country last night pass. We saw some constitutions enshrine those rights. But we do need to talk about what is the motivating factor. If you feel like you live in a state where that's protected, how are we best communicating with those people? Because maybe they're like, yes, I agree that there should not be a federal ban, but they didn't feel the imminent threat of that, and they felt like they lived somewhere where that was going to be safe.
But to your point, Iowa was supposed to be, according to that last poll, the one place where the women, and you're right, that was not on the ballot, and the referendum, according to these pollsters, was going to be Kamala Harris coming up there and making sure that they enshrined that, at least at the federal level. That did not happen. Do you think that there was messaging there earlier when she first ran that maybe it was time to pivot, to do something like the Trump team had done on economy, on immigration, that would get her there?
I think you have to talk about multitude of things. Voters can walk and chew gum at the same time. You can have this conversation about an incredibly important aspect of their lives. Women don't want their freedoms taken from them. That's why we keep winning the ballot initiatives. But they also want to talk about, are their kids going to a good school? Is there a safe community? What is the economy like? Are things affordable? And so this is what Democrats are going to have to go through and really dissect and figure out what were we messaging and who were we messaging it to and how did it work or not work.
She spoke about that pivot that the campaign had to do. Do you think that was the deciding, or one of the deciding factors that made this
I think
W happen?
I think everything Nicole said is 100% correct. And just in watching the consultants and the pundits this morning, particularly on Morning Joe and things, it's really dangerous when you get into a position as an elected official, when you lecture the electorate. The customer is right. And the fact that you think they should think this, and if they don't, they're bigots and they're Nazis, and that only gets you so far. There comes a time when you're going to have to sit down, son, and listen. And that's what has happened. We have watched over the last 30 years stores on streets of small town of America be ripped apart, emptied, as money was taken to New York and sent to China, and nobody listened to those people. Now we've discovered that those people that do the muscular work, doesn't make any difference what color they are, what ethnicity they are, what religion they are, those people that want to have a job, they wanted to be heard, and the person that spoke their language was a fellow by the name of Donald Trump. There were 15 other Republicans, all went by the wayside. He was the one that said what they were looking for.
Incredible stuff. 38% of all voters believe the economy was the #1 issue for them as they went to the ballot box yesterday. Nicole, Bob, thank you both for coming on and giving us the take from your party on the following day. Of course, Monday morning quarterbacking is always very easy. If it were that easy, then things would shift. But thank you both for coming on. I appreciate it.
Please go have a drink.
Meanwhile,